Coming to you from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We actually did film a Wednesday show last week. We're trying to get more of a stable schedule going on. We're due the Saturdays, but
Mhm.
Caleb and I have a lot of hard takes and opinions that we want to get off our chest throughout the week. So we're trying to kind of find another day to get our work in throughout the week. Today it worked out on a Wednesday. We are very, very excited to be here. Caleb, throughout the week, it must be tough for you not having a microphone to just spit whatever you need to in there to, just that relief of sports take watching with all the awesomeness that we've been seeing in the finals in both leagues.
Yeah, no, I mean, you obviously want to give the viewers a set day of when you record and post and all, but when these games happen every second day, you almost just want to record an episode right after the game so then you can articulate your thoughts and get those out. But yeah, it is frustrating that we can't do this more often, but we're going to work towards that in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's step by step on the show, as you guys know. We grow organically, but exponentially throughout the years, which brings us to our Vancouver top story, as the reputation of Vancouver is also growing exponentially, as it seems to really every time this city is put in the international spotlight. Vancouver has been voted the number one FIFA host city by Sports Illustrated. And again, this feels like it happens every couple of years or so when a big celebrity internationally comes to visit here, or we host a big Stanley Cup playoff series or a
Yeah.
World Cup or the Olympics a decade or so ago. People realize how just sweet the downtown setup is for all events. Like, I remember a couple of months ago, there were a couple of Asian streamers, like big time China influencers. They came here
Yeah.
and their videos went viral, showing Rogers Arena is right beside the Giant Stadium with a Costco in between where you can get hot dogs before the game. Like, it's
Yeah.
something we take for granted, but in cities like Kansas City or New Jersey or San Francisco, like, the stadium is a good hour and a bit from downtown, right?
Yeah.
Which is just nuts for traffic. They're in the middle of suburbs. Like, same thing with SoFi Stadium in LA. When I went to a game, the Lions against Chargers a couple years ago, I was amazed that that stadium is not in LA. It's about an hour and a half from LA. It's in Inglewood, which is
Yeah.
just like this cute little neighborhood in LA, which just happens to have the nicest stadium in the world plotted inside of it. And if that sounds like a traffic nightmare, it was a traffic nightmare. It took us a good 2.5 hours just to get out of the concourse area, if you will. We had to stop at an In-N-Out, and it was a whole ordeal. But Vancouver has the public transportation and the infrastructure to support huge numbers going in downtown. There's bars and restaurants everywhere you want. The scenery, the aerial shots with the Science World soccer ball, and they also have the science expedition where they're showing all of, the cool numbers and science behind soccer and the power of kicking and stuff like that. It's just one of the coolest views you can imagine with the ocean and the mountains in the background. I really do feel like it's put on display every time one of these big national or international events come here, that Vancouver truly is the best and most beautiful city in the world. And it's really, really cool to see other people starting to realize that in the mainstream culture.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, like when I look at all the NFL stadiums, majority of them aren't in the downtown core. Majority of them are far away and or
Your
are
Giants
getting
play on a swamp, bro.
yeah, no, East Rutherford, it's in a different state. It's in New Jersey. It's not even in New York. And then we're also seeing like the Browns are going to get a new stadium and it's not going to be in Cleveland. And the Bears
Yep.
might move and it's not even
Hammond,
going to be
Indiana. Where the
yeah,
hell is
to
that?
Indiana. Like a lot of these football stadiums, which BC Place is, soccer and football, are nowhere near the downtown. That's just kind of been what football like is, and hockey and basketball will be downtown. So for us to have it all there, I think it's a really cool concept. And yes, Vancouver's one of the best cities in the world. Obviously, we're going to be a little bit biased, but it's really got it all. And I think that's why we're going to get a ton of visitors from across the world, not just because people are trying to see their home nation at the World Cup, but because I think people want to visit Vancouver at the same time.
No doubt about it. And also just the beauty to specify on the World Cup. Like, Canada plays 2 games here. We host a
Yeah.
round of 32. We host a round of 16. Like,
Hmm.
everything has been coming up Vancouver when it comes to hosting this World Cup. Now,
Yeah.
have the gates around BC Place and the access to getting downtown itself driven me nuts over the past couple weeks, especially considering the fact you can't even get to BC Place from the Stadium Chinatown
Yeah.
SkyTrain
It's shut
station. You have
down.
to get off. Right, you have to get off at Main Street Science World.
Nice
Just
walk
silly
though.
to me, but hell of a walk. And I know that's what the um powers that be want people to see, the beauty of walking on that, what's it called? The pier or whatever,
Yeah,
right
like a
by,
boardwalk or whatever.
yeah, it's gorgeous, don't get me
Oh
wrong,
yeah.
but it's like an extra 10 minutes when you can just get off the SkyTrain and be outside of BC Place. But
Yeah.
I mean, again, get people to see the natural beauty of Vancouver. I understand it. It's frustrating for typical Vancouverites. I totally understand. But as far as the publicity that it's getting and the attention that finally I think this city deserves, I'm not going to say finally. People know Vancouver's awesome, but
Yeah.
it's fine. It's getting another just peak of media stream, and I think they deserve it. One of
Well,
the teams that plays in that BC place, it's been a tough couple weeks of scheduling, couple months of scheduling for the BC Lions, who start their season on Saturday against the Ford family's Saskatchewan Roughriders. I don't know if you know this, Caleb, but most of the Ford clan hails from Regina or Saskatoon, Saskatchewan,
really?
or Yorkton, Saskatchewan. Actually, is where my grandfather was from. Big Roughriders fan. But two of the three Grey Cup favorites in this contest, the Rough Riders sit at a pretty distant third, while the Lions are just behind the Alouettes when it comes to Grey Cup odds right now. Big season expected for the Lions this year. They're led by the best player in the CFL, Nathan Rourke, and a new documentary dropped on their preseason training camp in Kamloops, where our own Caleb Templeton happened to be a big time part of. Caleb, what can you tell us about the training camp, the Lions going into the season, and the documentary specifically?
Yeah, so the Lions every year do an Arrow Up training camp documentary, which no other CFL team does, by the way. It's an hour-long documentary. It's showing you the players inside the helmet. Just we go through the stories of players who have been cut. Jalen Darden is a player who is a great college player at North Texas, played some time in the NFL with the Buccaneers, with the Browns, with the Seahawks. He did get cut, so you see that. You see Nate DeMontenac, who is a Canadian receiver taken in the first round of the CFL draft this year. He made the team. Caden Salter is another big name who was a great Liberty quarterback, played at
Yeah,
Colorado last year, replacing Shadur Sanders. He's the QB3 now, and he just loved Kamloops. You get to see that in there. But then also Nathan Rourke, and like you mentioned, Nathan Rourke, most valuable or most outstanding player is what they call it in the CFL, most outstanding Canadian award winner as well. Clearly the best quarterback and best player in the CFL. I mean, he could even be a backup level quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. You also got
absolutely.
Keon Hatcher, who took home the Triple Crown, best receiver in the league by far. And so I think this is now the time for the Lions, and Rourke and Hatcher realize that. These are guys who have accomplished everything individually. Now they're seeking that Grey Cup win. And really, the Lions, they haven't won a Grey Cup since 2011, but they've had many teams that have come close. And they've said that their goal now is to host the West Final, which will be easier to get them to the Grey Cup. But yeah, Arrow Up documentary really shows you the player inside the helmet and really shows you the behind the scenes of all that goes into the rookie camp and the main camp, along with the two preseason games, one in Langford on Vancouver Island and then one in Winnipeg. So yeah, really cool documentary, and I'm grateful that I was a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is a huge season for the Lions in more ways than one. Like you said, obviously the CFL expectations of not winning a Grey Cup since 2011 and being a really, really good team during a lot of the Wally Bruno years and even beyond that. But with the variance that's taking place in the scheduling at BC Place right now, with the Whitecaps potentially leaving and there
Yeah.
being potentially new stadium built and all of the conversations happening between Pavco and these different organizations who use it, it's going to be a really, really important season for the Lions to show that they are still ingratiated into BC culture in a way. Like we were describing last episode, I still think it is a Canadian staple, if you will, to, once a year pay $30 to head downtown, go see the Lions
Yeah.
play, have a fun tailgate. You know what I mean? It feels like it's still a part of the community in a way. And if this team is sick, it's been proven that BC will rally around it. So if they are able to live up to expectations, I think it's going to be a really important season for the Lions in more ways than just in the CFL context. I think in terms of BC sports in general, it could have a huge influence on the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and like you said, it's gonna be a tough road for them because of the
For
World
sure.
Cup in Vancouver, which, by the way, I did wanna mention. I find it crazy that the host cities were gonna be Toronto and Edmonton, and then eventually they decided, no, we'd rather Vancouver over Edmonton because Vancouver finally cooperated and said, okay, no, we'll put grass in the stadium. So
Well, they
kind of
wanted Vancouver the whole time, right? But
exactly,
we
but
were
like
very,
Edmonton, like
too proud.
you're
Edmonton's I'm
I
gonna say a controversial take. Edmonton sucks. I hate being in Edmonton. Calgary's cool. I spent
Calgary's
quite
good.
a lot of time in Alberta. I got family out there and a lot of friends and people who go to university over at MRU, so I'm very familiar with the area.
Mhm.
Edmonton, visiting that was incredibly underwhelming. And also, I hate to be that guy to, take a dump on their biggest tourist attraction, but that West Edmonton Mall, it isn't a mall. It's a theme park with some stores, and you have to pay an extra 60 to $80 just to actually enjoy the West Edmonton Mall experience. And the stores in there are okay, but it's like Metro Town if it had a theme park. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
the big tourist attraction of it is I don't know. It's just
it's
not
basically
my thing.
it's basically like because I know there's one in Minneapolis too, but it's basically like if you just put a mall, aquatic center, and like what a rink or a few rinks in like
Yeah, there's a
one
rink in
thing
the middle. They do
because
the
they
rec
have the
tournament.
space. Like
Right.
in Vancouver, there's an aquatic center right beside it. Like it's not that special when you think about it. It's just all in one building. But yeah, back to the Lions. Like they have they have all their buys um, in these next few weeks, which is always
Mhm.
tough. You don't get that late season bye. They have to play their home games in Kelowna, and these guys don't live in Kelowna. I mean, a lot of these guys don't even have homes in the Lower Mainland yet. So a lot of them are going to be the vets are going to be away from their family. These new guys have to adjust to that. Um, so yeah, a lot of road games too. So it's a lot of adjusting for the Lions. So it's going to be a tough season on that end. But it's going to be interesting. And Kelowna, by the way, is a place that they've talked about potentially expanding the CFL to. So we'll
Mhm.
see if Kelowna gives those numbers. That would be interesting as well.
Well, I think everyone knows that it's time to expand the CFL. It's
Yeah.
like the fact that Quebec City doesn't have a team at this point, I think, is just ridiculous. And yeah, there's definitely a bid for Kelowna, and I think one of the Maritimes should have a team, just so that all of those provinces, the Prince Edward Islands, the Newfoundlands and Labradors, all of those teams can kind of rally around something. They
Yeah.
kind of just go straight for the Alouettes at this point, I think,
Yeah, which is
mostly. But
far.
yeah,
That's
really
far
far,
from
and it's,
them.
and that's cool in the NHL. Like they have the Habs, which is like
Yeah.
close-ish. You know what I mean? They can root for them. But in terms of like the CFL, our national league, I feel like the Maritimes need something over there. And it's not like the travel is any really real difference there. It's still East Coast to West Coast, and send them
Yeah.
to the Eastern Conference. Anyways, I think it would work. We got to move on though to the primary team in British Columbia, the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
It has been reported by Sean Hutchion. I don't know how set in stone this is, but the fact that he had the balls to tweet it makes me think it at least has some kind of prevalence. It's been reported that the Maple Leafs have told Gavin McKenna they intend to select him with the first overall pick at the 2026 draft. So, with that, let's, for the sake of argument, say that McKenna is in stone there at number one. The more I read, the more I watch, the more I think about Canucks history and what ends up happening to them, the more I think it's going to be Caleb at number three. And the overwhelming thought in my head is like, of course, this happens to the Canucks. The first year that they have a top three draft pick in a hot minute, the first year that they're at the very bottom of the league, they're committed to a rebuild. They need this first round pick to hit. They have to take their coach's kid which is just full of, as we've gotten into before, so many side storylines and things the media can grasp, and just some unnecessary noise that is going to be around these two, with to no fault of their own, mind you,
Yeah.
but it's just going to happen. Caleb, I know you had a bit of a different opinion hearing this news. Do you think that Caleb to the Canucks is now more or less set in stone?
I do agree it's more set in stone, but I don't think it's set in stone at all, if that makes sense. I still think if the Sharks go with the defenseman like Chase Reed or even Carson Carles at 2, the Canucks will go with Ivar Stenberg at 3, at least if they're smart about their decisions. I get that you need a center, and I really do like Caleb Malhotra, but Ivar Stenberg is a guy who can be your best player on a Stanley Cup winning team. He's a really good
Ooh,
winger.
so?
Oh yeah, I really do think so. I mean, this guy would be a first overall pick in many drafts, and he, like a few months ago, people thought he legitimately should have been the first overall pick, and now you're going to get him at 3. I think that's a really good deal because now you get him at 3. You were the worst team in the league, but you're not getting the drama of, oh, you picked Stenberg over McKenna if you got him at 1. Oh, you picked Stenberg and got a really good player at 3. He
Mhm.
can play left wing, he can play right wing. He's just a really good player. I think you can't let him get to Chicago. Like um, that would be a bad look on the Canucks because Stenberg's going to be a really good player. He's going to start right away. He's a bit of an older player. He's a late '07. But yeah, it would be really exciting for Canucks fans too, because like I really do think he would play in Vancouver right away. Whereas Caleb, you're gonna wait a few years. He's going to the NCAA, obviously. So I think the decision is Stenberg if he's available, but you can go with Malhotra. I really do like Chase Reed, right shot
Mhm.
defenseman. And I really like Carson Carles. He's a left shot, but when I was with the Vancouver Giants, they hosted the WHL prospects game, and the
Yep.
WHL has a lot of prospects who will be first round picks this year. And Carson Carles was by far the best player out on the ice against the best of that league. He's a really good player, and his question coming into this season was, can he be good offensively? And he put up 73 points in 58 WHL games and then got a point a game in the playoffs with the Prince George Cougars. So he's another player I really like. I really think the Canucks should consider all options. But if Stenberg's on the board, it's Stenberg to me. And really, this McKenna news to me doesn't change much. I always thought, and most people always thought, that McKenna was going to go 1 to the Leafs.
No, for sure. I agree with that. I mean, there was a week ago, I think, a little bit of whispering and hope from Canucks fans. I know Sakaris and Price, great friends of the show, by the way,
Yeah.
put up a poll that they were, do you think there's still a chance that the Canucks get McKenna? So, in that way, there was still that door cracked open a smidge. But I do agree with you in the fact that if Stenberg is available at 3, that would be my pick. I just question if that's even a realistic possibility at this point. I think if San Jose doesn't take him, they would be more, excuse me, much more, what's the word? It'd be much smarter of them, flatly, to trade down and take one of those two defensemen, because I really don't
Yeah.
think that there's a big difference between Chase Reed and Carson Carles in terms of raw talent. Now, if I was the Canucks, I would lean Carson Carles because we've seen the American defenseman gets drafted to the Canadian
Yeah.
team and what ends up
Yeah.
happening with that. And maybe that's post-traumatic Quinn disorder, but it's just not something that I want to go through again. I don't think my heart can take it, so I'd probably go Carles in that situation. But if Stenberg doesn't get taken at 2, I agree he will be the Canucks' pick at 3 as he should. But with the Caleb situation, if he does get taken at 3, I want to be perfectly clear about something. I think 95% of the situation off ice with Caleb and Manny will be just fine. These
Hmm.
are very mature individuals. Both are seemingly very good at their jobs. I've articulated that it's possible Caleb will be a future captain in the league. He's that kind of kid. But that 5% of the 95 where he has to send Caleb down, or he has to cut his minutes, or he has to rip him, or again, in the locker room when guys are complaining about the coach, are they going to want Caleb as part of those conversations? Are there going to be some dinners that Caleb misses because it's a bit of an awkward situation for him?
Right.
Fringe players might feel that their spot was taken if Caleb gets into the lineup early in his career because of nepotism. Again, this stuff won't happen a lot. It'll pop up every 2 to 3 months, maybe, if not less than that. But it will happen.
Yeah.
So if Caleb is the best player available at 3 by a margin, fine, take him. But if it's because he's a center, and in actuality, if you go player for player, it's a toss-up between him and whatever, Chase Reed, Carson Karls, even Keaton Verhoff. I don't know how high they have him on the draft board, but
Yeah.
if it's at all marginally close between those two, I would go the other direction just so you can avoid the headache. And again,
Right.
if this was Minnesota or Nashville, or no disrespect to those markets, but they got other things going on.
Yeah.
Vancouver, it's all Canucks all the time.
It
This is
is.
going to be a talking point until Manny is fired. Hopefully he, Caleb outlasts him. You want the player to be around forever and the coach is hired so he can get fired. This is going to be a thing, whether they like it or not. So I would avoid the headache if I can. But again, at this point, you need the most talent you can possibly get out of the draft picks that you have. If Caleb's that guy, go for it. I just have my doubts that he is dramatically better than a Carson Karls or a Chase Reed. Or, to be honest, I know he's not going to go 3 at this point, but man, I was so impressed with Vigo Bjork at the World Championships. I think there are other options that can set Vancouver up better for the future, both on and off the ice. But again, I'm not an amateur scout. Maybe Caleb is just a lot better at his position than Chase Reed at his. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to your Bjork point, he was the best player, in my opinion, on Sweden at the World Championships. He was better than Stenberg. Um, I do want to go back to your point though about the Chase Reed thing and him being American and kind of that PTSD with Quinn Hughes. The reason why I love Carson Karls so much is because not only is he Canadian, but he's gone out and said to the media, I want a Canadian team to draft me. I want to be
Yeah.
the guy that brings a Canadian team a Stanley Cup. So there's that passion there that you're probably not going to get with an American defenseman like Chase Reed about bringing, a Stanley Cup to Vancouver. Like, I do think we get a little too caught up in oh, this guy's from Sweden or this guy's from Canada. There's Canadian players who play the Euro style, and there's Euro players who play the Canadian style. Like, that's
I
just
would
what it
argue
is.
Stenberg's one of those people. He's
Yes,
a Swede
Stenberg
who
plays
plays
a
a much American
Canadian
style.
style of hockey, whereas McKenna plays a little more of a Euro style. It's just the way it is. And
Totally
so
agree.
we get caught up in this, oh, you know, Canadians do win the Stanley Cup. That's a fact, but I feel like we just need to pick whoever the best player is. But in this situation, if two guys, like you said with the Caleb thing, if Caleb is even with those other guys, why not go with the other guys that can potentially avoid the problem? If an American and a Canadian are even, why not just go with the Canadian player? So I totally agree on that. Carson Karls is a left shot defenseman, so I feel like a lot of people don't like that as much. And there's a lot of good right shot defensemen in this class who will go in the top 15. There's Keaton Verhoff, who you mentioned, who I think has fallen off a little bit just based on this guy was projected to be like a top 3 pick like months ago, and
Mhm.
now he's more in that 6 to 8 range. I think a lot about him though is his size, and that was what really hyped him up. There's Daxon Rudolph, there's Ryan Lynn, again, other right shot defensemen. So it's an interesting class, and I think that's what kind of ruins it for Carl's is when you're not a right shot, you're just not going to get picked as high. So, but I like Chase Reed as well. The Canucks just hopefully they make the right pick this time.
Yeah, we'll see how she goes. Speaking of Ryan Lynn, by the way, I really do think this could be a spot where Vancouver trades up from that number 24 pick to maybe get to around
Yeah,
19 or 20 to take this kid. His
yeah,
combine results were unbelievable. He is a straight up athlete. He is Vancouver through and through. He's from Richmond, played for the
Yep,
Giants,
yep.
and just the excitement that you saw in his inflection and his body language when he was talking about his draft day interview with the Canucks was this kid wants to be drafted by the Canucks so bad. And back to your Carson Carlos point, I do think it's important to have that extra level of motivation and pride in the team that you're playing for and training
Mhm.
for as a prospect. So I think Ryan Lynn could be someone that they trade up for. It's also just the fact that it's much easier to trade up in the draft the later you get into it. So I think that could be interesting as well. But speaking of Stanley Cups, as you did a couple of minutes ago, we got to talk about this Stanley Cup final, my man.
Yeah.
Is this has got to be the craziest 4-game start to the Stanley Cup final ever, right? Like, I mean, that Edmonton Florida series was nuts when Edmonton eventually came back and forced a game 7, but in
That
those
was,
first 4
yeah.
games, it was like, oh, well, Florida's just going to kick their ass. You know what I
Right.
mean? It down 3-0, you're like, oh, this series sucks. But looking at this, the margins between these two teams, like to say that they're razor thin would be an insult to razor thin things. It really would. I mean, I've got the stats in front of me right now. Like chances per game, Vegas has zero 0.7 more. Cycle chances, they got a couple more, but it's all been Carolina's forecheck creating opportunities for them. Special teams chances, Vegas is winning as I thought they would before the series. But yesterday, to me, Carolina just played with a bit more fire from the opening puck drop, a bit more desperation, and just overall played a better game. And I didn't think that Vegas' stars had their best of nights. I thought Marner played his worst game of the finals, which, let's be perfectly clear, he was still really good. It's just a very high bar he has set for himself in these Stanley Cup finals.
Obviously,
And
yeah.
yeah, Eichel's been pretty quiet most of these playoffs, if I'm being
Yep.
honest. I didn't think he was great yesterday. And in Carolina's man-to-man system in their defensive zone, Vegas needs those guys to draw double teams so they can start breaking it down. Marner had an awesome play showcasing that for Vegas's third goal, I believe it was, where he drew 2 in on the rush and then he was able to start the cycle behind the net. Stone got it to the slot, and I think it was Howden who potted. I could be wrong about that. But um, Vegas, it was so fascinating to watch though, because I knew it was Carolina's night as soon as they didn't get that goal at the end of the first period. Because when it
Yeah.
went in, I was like, fuck, like this is the goal that Vegas always gets, right? Like
Right.
just before the period, Carolina's got all the momentum and it is zapped because they scored with zero 0.1 seconds left and now they're buzzing going into the room. They didn't get it. And it wasn't particularly close. And when I saw those zeros pop up, I was like, oh, okay, this is the Canes night. Vegas did, as I said, their very best to get back into it, and it was an unbelievable game. But Carolina deserved it. I thought that they still are lacking in their adjustments this series. Their D is still playing far too aggressive in the neutral zone and in the offensive zone with the speed that Vegas presents. They killed them with those flip plays. Again, I'm going to keep mentioning them on the show until they start defending them. Vegas had another like 4 breakaways yesterday,
Yeah.
including 2 by Mark Stone, whose
Yeah.
knock on him his whole career has been his foot speed. Um, I still think Vegas has some work to do if they want to get this job done in anything less than 7 games. But at this point, it's hard not to expect the series to go to 7 games, isn't it?
I totally agree. I have a few stats about how great this series has been. It's the first Stanley Cup final where each team has scored 3+ goals and the series averages 8+ goals a game after 4 games. They've had the most combined goals, 33, since the Minnesota North Stars and New York Islanders had 36 goals in their first 4 games in 1981. I mean, this series has given us everything. It's showing that once you're up, you're not always up. The momentum is being taken away. It's a shift to shift, period to period thing. It's not a game to
Mhm.
game thing, which I just love. But it's funny because when that McNabb goal, or no goal, I should say, wasn't counted, I still thought that Vegas was going to have a killer second period because
Mhm.
they have in this series. It was
Yeah.
Vegas has outscored Carolina 7-1 in the second period in the first 3 games, and now 9-1 in the second period after 4 games. That's really been the period where they thrived, and if they could have gotten that McNabb goal, they would have gone into the third with a lead, which would have been huge for them. But to me, with Carolina, the story has been Jordan Staal, who's just been the ultimate guy, ultimate captain, playoff riser, great defensively. He is shutting down Jack Eichel, and then offensively, he's super productive. 5 goals in his first 4 Stanley Cup games this series. He's winning every single faceoff. I mean, he's having an all-time Stanley Cup final run right now, and he's playing that old school brand of hockey. If Carolina wins, I think he easily takes home the Conn Smythe. I think this is a
Really?
oh yes, and
I was
also
gonna ask you about that.
well, I just want to mention there's people out there who listen, when McDavid won the Conn Smythe and he didn't win the Stanley Cup, it was like, okay, I can live with that. I just think when it's a series like this, you gotta give it to whoever the best player on the winning team has been. And if that ends
Right.
up being
It's
Carolina,
not finals MVP though, right?
I
Remember, playoff
yeah,
MVP. Gotta incorporate the first 3 rounds too.
yeah, no, I get that, but I still think he's shown up when they need him to show up. I mean, like Carolina has still gotten absolutely nothing from Svechnikov and Aho, and
Oh, thank you for
they're
bringing that up. I
still
got more to say
winning
about them.
winning games. Like Aho is a point a game guy in the regular season, and he's not even close in the playoffs.
He looks like
Um,
he's scared to shoot the puck right now. It's
yeah.
unbelievable, especially on the power play, man. Like, he doesn't even look to the net these days.
Yeah, and, like, Svechnikov, like, again, 70 points in 79 games, really good goal scorer, but only 9 points in the playoffs, like, to me, when I think about that, I think there's, like, positives and negatives to it. The positives are like, well, Carolina are pulling off games where these guys are doing nothing. So, will these guys come out of the blue and finally show up? And then if they do, then will it be much easier for Carolina to get 2 more wins? Or can Carolina just not get 2 more wins without these guys not being productive offensively? So it's kind of one of those weird situations. But like to me, Jordan Stahl has been the ultimate guy who's done everything for Carolina. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about him. But
He's the
yeah, it's
definition of a captain. That's what he is. He's the
exactly.
definition of a damn captain. That's what he is. But sorry to cut you off, but I have to say the reason why Aho and Svechnikov have been able to get through these shitty playoffs that they've had, and I'm like I said, I'm so glad you brought that up because they, to my eye, have been embarrassingly bad, especially in these last couple of games. But the reason why they're still playing fine, and as Carolina as a team, I should articulate, is because Jackson Blake, Taylor Hall, and Logan Stankoven probably have sports hernias at this point from putting them on their back. It has been
Yeah.
the best line I have seen throughout an entire playoff run ever. I'm dead serious about that. I understand that these are not household names, and Taylor Hall, of all people, is one of the more dominant players in these playoffs, but every shift that these guys take, it looks like they're on a power play. It looks like there's 4 of them. They have unbelievable instinct with each other to keep one of the wingers high and on the weak side away from the play. So if the puck ever comes around the boards behind the net after they lose a battle, which doesn't happen very often, the other guy's right there to make up for it and make a play and keep the puck in the zone. And
Yeah.
I just want to point out a couple of stats from this line. This is from every single line that is played in the playoffs. They have the highest expected goals for as a line at 13.6. The next closest is at 7.2. And the third place is at 7. So you have a whole group crumpled up around that 7, high 6s area. And then you have this line at 13.6. They have the highest expected goals for percentage as well. Every stat you can imagine, these guys are kicking ass. And again, there isn't a headliner. It switches every single night who's really the dog. You had Stankoven, what was that in game 2, where he had that unbelievable forecheck to spark the Carolina comeback. Taylor Hall, to me, was the best of the three last night, even though Jackson Blake had a couple of awesome plays. You said you couldn't say enough good things about Jordan Staal, man. This line, I was concerned about Carolina's power play and top end talent not being able to match up to Vegas's. Again, they make every 5-on-5 shift look like a power play when they're out on the
Mhm.
ice. It is unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, and oh, um,
So hold
sorry,
on.
I just got a
I
phone
want to
call.
pivot. No, you're good. I want to pivot to you with this though. So if Carolina wins, which is not set in stone, who
Yeah,
takes home the Conn Smythe for you? Because I think it's pretty set in stone. Vegas takes it home. Marner's getting it.
yeah, Marner's getting it.
Carolina, I would take a giant knife and split the Conn Smythe three ways between Blake, Aho, and Hall. But I know you can't do that. Who would be your pick?
Well, I mean, I think, like I still think Stahl, like, I think Stankoven's got a case too, but I would still give it to Stahl. He's because of all the things he does, kind of a storybook, maybe ending to his career too. I would go Stahl.
Yeah, man, I almost want to give it to Jackson Blake, dude. I
Really?
He's tied for the lead in the team in points with 18. To me, he's looked like the most impactful player on the most impactful line these entire playoffs. And the fact that Carolina extended him last offseason before he had this real pop off is just a credit to their incredible management team led by Eric Tulsky, who, by the way, has proven that nerds are absolutely the future of this league, whether anybody likes it or not. I mean, the way that he's been able to construct this team with, again, not being the superstar attraction that a Vegas or a Florida is, it's been unbelievable to watch. Sorry, I'm just trying to look up the contract that Jackson Blake is on because when I saw this, it was 8 years by 40 mil. So he makes $5 million a year.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy is a $10 million hockey player. Or at least he's been playing like it these playoffs. It is unbelievable the way that Carolina's been able to construct that roster. But to me, he would be my number one pick. It was Freddie Anderson before these finals, but he's been terrible.
Yeah,
Also,
no.
what did you think about him not even dressing yesterday? Did you buy Moore's explanation that it was just a rest day?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I did want to touch up on that whole Carolina goalie situation though. Like to me, you gotta have conversations about whether Freddie Anderson starts again. Like Bussy looked good in game 3, like really good, but in game 4, to me, he looked anxious. And obviously, it's your first ever playoff game and you're starting in the Stanley Cup finals. But he wasn't steady. He did make big saves when they needed it. But to me, I think they didn't get a good enough game from him to fully be confident that he's going to close out this series for Carolina. So maybe it just was a rest day for Anderson, and it's a great thing that they got the win. But I think they need to have some discussions about who, like Bussy was 857 save percentage.
Mhm.
He just wasn't. I don't know. I think there's a real decision for Moore to make there.
Well, I think Anderson's hurt, bro. Like the backup for Carolina yesterday, and I'm gonna butcher this last name, but you're just gonna have to deal with it, was Piotr Kochikov.
Or
And
Kochetkov.
his last NHL game was December 20th, and he played two AHL games in April. There is no way that Freddie Anderson is not at least playing with something. You don't
Yeah.
put that guy as your backup in the Stanley Cup Finals unless he's not able to go. So I think that there's more to this story than meets the eye. I wonder if he's actually going to be able to come back in the series. But one thing that I will say about Bussy, I do agree with you that he was sporadic at times and a little bit too prone to challenge shots and to flatly not great with his rebound control. But I thought he played the puck really, really well. He had a couple really nice plays behind his net. One that I can remember, he faked a shot, pass up the right wall and then put it through his legs to a wide open defenseman. Like, kind of brought Carolina a bit of an element of puck control in their own zone, which I think they've been missing a lot this
Mhm.
series with Vegas' forecheck. So I don't know. Like you said, sorry, he wasn't the most consistent, but his highs were really high, and he made some very athletic plays. Moving on to the other biggest hockey story that is happening right now, and I can't believe it's happening. Oh my gosh. Pierre LeBrun tweets this morning, the NHL is moving ahead with its investigation on Mike Babcock and the events in Columbus per an NHLPA request, which means the Edmonton Oilers have decided they're going to hire Mike Babcock as their next head coach as long as everything turns out okay from this investigation. Um, I'm going to start on this one, Caleb, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Um, I think he will be allowed to coach. I think after this investigation is through, they're going to realize that the events in Columbus, isolated in and of themselves, I'm not talking about anything else throughout Babcock's history. The photos that he asked for in terms of his introductory meetings with the players, I think he will be cleared from that. I think it was over exaggerated how invasive this actually was when it was first reported. Um, and at the end of the day, asking someone to show you photos without physically taking their phone or putting your power above them saying you have to do this,
Yeah.
it's not great. I think it's definitely out of touch, but it's not to the point where he should be actively suspended or reprimanded. So will he be allowed to coach? I think so. Do I think it's a good idea? I absolutely do not think so. I don't like seeing bad people get great jobs. And I think Mike Babcock, in terms of a human being, is a flatly bad person. I will never, ever forget what he did to Mike Modano with the 1,499 games, healthy scratching him for that. The Mitch Marner thing is just insane, where he had him list who he thinks the hardest workers are from highest to lowest and then posted that list in front of the entire team. The things he did in Toronto were incredibly shady. And also, just as a hockey coach, when he got fired for Sheldon Keefe, the Leafs got better in every single statistic and advanced statistic you could possibly imagine. What has this guy done as a hockey coach? Subtract the fact he's a terrible person. What has this guy done to be able to coach Connor McDavid in his prime? He made the playoffs a lot with the Red Wings. Like, good fucking job. He won a single Stanley Cup with Nick Lidstrom, Pavel Datsyuk, Henrik Zetterberg, one of the best eras of Detroit hockey ever. Won once. Okay, cool. He won gold with Team Canada at the Olympics. I could have coached that team to a gold medal. Like, when you actually look at his hockey resume, it's just nowhere near as impressive as the aura around Mike Babcock makes it seem that it is. And I think it's flatly insane that the Edmonton Oilers, who are desperately trying to extend Connor McDavid's prime and window of winning, like, it's clearly the Tortorella effect. They've seen what's happened in Vegas, and they're going to bring in an old,
Yeah. Yeah.
fiery coach to try to spark up this team. I get that. But man, this is just not it from so many different perspectives. And I was very disappointed to see this news flatly.
Well, I agree with you on the person aspect. In terms of the coach aspect, like you said, won a Stanley Cup in Detroit, lost one the next year, but those were stacked teams. Didn't do anything in the playoffs in Toronto. But at the end of the day, it comes down to me on what do Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl think about this? Like,
Apparently, they're behind it, dude.
if they're behind it, then go with it. That's what I think. Like, if your best players, and Connor McDavid's someone who has been considered to be leaving Edmonton, and that's always been on the table. Well, if this is going to keep him there, then you gotta do what, like, if you wanna go with someone else, but then you risk losing Connor McDavid, it's literally not a better decision if that other coach is better than Mike Babcock. Like, if Mike Babcock, you think he's just gonna be an average coach, but you keep Connor McDavid and you keep Leon Draisaitl, and you think at least he'll elevate the team more than Knobloch did, even though I thought Knobloch elevated the team a lot, and I thought he wasn't really given a fair shot. I mean, he went to 2 Stanley Cup Finals in 3 years, but you know, like if that's what they want, then you gotta support. And I'm not always like a player first type of guy where it's like, oh, your best player. But this is Connor McDavid. This has been the best player in the NHL for over a decade. If you lose him and you don't get a Stanley Cup during his tenure there, you're going to be quite disappointed. So if he's happy with it, then if I was an Oilers fan, I'd be content with it as well. And you mentioned the old kind of school coaches thing. Another example is Joel Quenneville. Now, I think Quenneville and Tortorella, maybe not Tortorella, but I do think these are Stanley Cup winning coaches who do bring great experience to teams. And as we see with Quenneville, he's been great everywhere he's been, obviously in Chicago and now in Anaheim. So, you know, there is that to it, but it's been a while
I
since
don't think Joel
Babcock
Quenneville
coached.
and Mike Babcock are comparable coaches, man. I think Quenneville has proven over his tenure that he's just a lot better as a leader and decision maker, flatly. I think his resume in Chicago was a million times better than what Babcock was able to do in Detroit, and I think what he's done with the Ducks this just this past season, not the has was more impressive than anything Babcock did with the Leafs. I'm dead serious about that. When Babcock joined that team, that was the point where they had just drafted Matthews. Marner was already a part of the squad. Nylander
Hmm.
was there. They were stacked with talent, and they were just about to sign John Tavares. I don't know how many coaches wouldn't have made the playoffs in that exact situation. I really don't think those two coaches are comparable. But to play devil's advocate, you said Knobloch wasn't really given a fair chance. Well, his style is a lot more players coach, soft spoken, pat you on the back kind of guy.
Yeah.
Usually, when you replace that kind of coach, you want a military style hard ass. You want the contradiction so that, again, the team can spark up a little bit in terms of the momentum. So I do understand it from that perspective. It's just in terms of his body of work, it does not impress me the way that a Joel Quenneville does, or I think Tortorella has been given far too many opportunities, but clearly it's working now, so there's nothing I can say about it. It's just, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this from a million different perspectives, but the primary one being when you hear the name Mike Babcock, you're like, oh shit, somebody's coming in who knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
This is a hockey coach. I just don't think his actual body of work is conducive to his reputation. But I want to get into basketball real quick because we're running out of time and it's a whole lot of fun to talk about some hoops, especially with this series right now. Um, game four is tonight.
Yeah.
The Spurs took home game three, surviving yet another day. If they went down 0-3, I think everyone and their mother thought that series was over. So they survived.
Yeah.
Thanks to an awesome game from Victor Wembanyama and a cool down game from Karl Anthony Towns. The Spurs are right back in it. Caleb, what did you see? And how are you feeling as someone who picked the Knicks? Are you nervous at all?
I am a bit nervous. I really think the Spurs figured out ways to win 4 games of this series. And I think once they kind of figured that out, it's going to be hard for the Knicks. Like Victor Wembanyama was only averaging around like 10 points a game in the paint, and then he got 16 points in the paint in game 3. I really
His
think
first 8 points were all in the paint.
yeah, I think the Spurs did a great job with getting him easy looks in the paint. I still think one-on-one with Cat's got him locked up. And so they did a really good job of getting him easy baskets. If they can continue that, that'll be a good recipe for success for the Spurs. And then you mentioned Karl Anthony Towns. Offensively, he just wasn't good enough, and it wasn't even near what he was in game 1 and 2. I do think it's been a very physical series, especially in game
Yeah.
3. And I do think, I'm not a huge oh blame the refs guy, but like the Knicks didn't really benefit from calls in game 3, I felt. But that's what you're going to get when both teams are trying to cheat and play extra physical. And, the Knicks overall, like, like head coach Mike Brown was just blaming the refs in his press conference. Well, why don't you blame your team for playing quite sloppy, I thought. 13 turnovers. This was a deserved loss, no doubt, for the Knicks, but the
I thought
refs
that
weren't
was
on the
spillover
side.
from game 2, didn't you?
Sorry?
Like, the Knicks I thought that was spillover from game 2. Like, I know that the Knicks won that game, but to me, the reffing in game 2 was more egregious against the Knicks than it was in game 3. But because they won, you can't go up to the
Right,
podium and bitch about the refs. So the
right,
next game, when a couple of calls don't go your way and you lose, then it's the opportunity plus what happened. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a pile-on effect.
right. No, no, I'd agree with that. And yeah, but you got to give credit to the Spurs. They played great, and I think a lot of that is because Victor Wembanyama got points in the paint, but that's because he's got playmakers around him in Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, who once they threaten to drive downhill, that draws players to them and it opens up Wemby in the paint. It's what we saw with the Spurs in the Tim Duncan days. That's where he really benefited. So if the Spurs can continue to play that style of game, and then Wembanyama continuing to be the best defensive player in the game, like game 3 was insane from him defensively.
Yeah.
I think if they can continue that, I really don't think the Knicks have a response. I mean, there are some things the Knicks can do. I felt like it was too Jalen Brunson-y to me in
I'll
game
get there.
3. He's
I'll get
he's the
there.
best player on the team, no doubt, but in some NBA series, there's a best player on your team, but then there's a player that you need to be the best to win. I
There's an
think
X
of like
factor. Yeah.
the Cavs Raptors series in the first round. I thought Brandon Ingram needed to be the best player on the Raptors to win that series, and he wasn't, and they didn't. And it's the same in this series. Karl Anthony Towns needs to be the best player on the Knicks to win this series, and if he's not, to me, they don't have a chance. They need to, I think they need to find those mismatches, and Cat is one of them offensively, but if he just can't get going, then he just can't get going. I think what Mike Brown needs to do in game 4 though is get OG Anunoby going a little more. He's huge, big, strong guy, really good defensively, and if he shoots really well, that can be something that the Knicks rely on in game 4 and take a 3-1 series lead. But to me, it's funny because we talked about that Suns Bucks series where the Suns were up 2-0 and then the Bucks took four games to win it. To me,
Mhm.
this reminds me of that series a little bit. And I know
Yeah.
there was no one who could guard Giannis, but to me, the Spurs have figured out what they need to do to win. And like I kind of don't like my Knicks in 7 pick now. I could see the Spurs rattling off 3 wins in a row.
Well, I'm glad you agree because I have written down on this computer in front of me, the Spurs are so back. They're so
Yeah,
back. And listen, a lot of blame has been put on Brunson, and let's be honest, he deserves it. He's played like trash these entire finals. But the thing that the Spurs are doing specifically is making every ball handler other than Brunson uncomfortable with the ball. The Knicks have a lot of guys who can handle the ball. Mikal Bridges can handle the ball. OG Anunoby can handle the ball. Josh Hart can handle the ball. Karl Anthony Towns can, but they're not professional ball handlers.
right.
Brunson is the only guy on that team who has been dribbling the ball up the court every single game since he was 5 years old. And this is an unbelievable stat from Kirk Goldsberry, who's just the best at what he does. Jalen Brunson has dribbled 1,590 times across the first 3 games. Stephon Castle ranks second at 813. So he almost has double the amount of dribbles as the second place ball handler in this series. And when Brunson is the only one comfortable with the ball, he's not a playmaking kind of guard. He's going to chuck up shots. And that plays right into the Spurs' hands. The Knicks started this incredible playoff run of theirs against Atlanta with what concept? Karl Anthony Towns playing point center, cutters behind him. Brunson gets to play off ball and run off ball screens, which create more space than an on ball screen. and they were able to run one of the more efficient offenses in the history of the NBA during that time. Like, I really wouldn't mind seeing Cat dribbling the ball up from time to time, or at
Mhm.
least get it to him immediately once they cross half court, because that is the fulcrum that the Knicks can base their offense off of. Because if you have Cat on the perimeter with the ball, it forces Wemby to come out to the perimeter, which starts the whole rim protection issue, which I got into last episode. So I think the Knicks have played right into the Spurs' hands these past three halves, if I'm being honest with you. Even the second half of game two, I thought they went a bit too Brunson ball centric. But if they're not able to go back to what brought them here, as the old Texas saying says, you dance with who brung you. Cat's passing and facilitating brought them here. They've got to go back to it, because this Jalen Brunson ball is the reason why they got beat by Indiana last year. And
Mhm.
it flatly isn't going to work against a guy like Stephon Castle, who has done a way better job against Brunson than I expected coming into this series. And Dylan Harper still looks fresh to me. So
Yeah.
definitely scary times for the Knicks. It's nowhere near time to panic yet. The
No,
2-1
no.
series lead, obviously, with the next game at home, you're in a good spot. But I'm in the same vein as you, whereas I see the adjustments that the Spurs have made and the ones that the Knicks haven't made, and I say, shit, dude. It looks like the talent advantage is going to be the disparity, and the Spurs flatly have the talent advantage.
Yeah, and that was a game where I don't think the Spurs shot particularly well either.
Nope.
But despite it being a close game, I think it was a pretty comfortable win for the Spurs. I don't think I would give game four to the Spurs, and I think it's going to be by more like 7 to 10 points rather than as close as the last two games have been.
Spread is Knicks -2.5
Mm,
in New York tonight. So you would be heavy on the Spurs side of that.
I would.
I would totally agree with you. I think the Spurs get it done tonight. And I hope they get it done tonight, because this is an NBA Finals that we deserve to see 7 games. By the way, we talked about how awesome this Stanley Cup final has been. I went back and just did a quick glance of NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals in the same year to see if there's ever been a year similar to how awesome this has been
Right.
so far. Couldn't find it. I got to be totally honest with you. The closest that I could find was in 2016, when it was the best finals ever, in my
Yeah.
opinion, that
Yep.
2016 series. And then
Yep.
the Penguins and
Predators.
no, that was the Sharks series. The
Sharks.
the
Okay.
Penguins and Sharks series was pretty good.
Wasn't that
But
5 games though?
I think it was 6. But again, you can't compare that to what we've seen throughout the
No.
first 3, 4
No.
games. It's just, and I have to go back further than that. In all transparency, I was only able to make it to like 2012 before I had to stop researching and focus on other things. But when I actually go through that breakdown, when these series are over, I hate the series is plural thing. It's always twists up my tongue. But anyways, when these are over, I'll actually take a hard look at it and go back to like 1950 or something stupid like I enjoy doing. But for now, just know that you are watching some very, very
Yeah.
special stuff in the sports world. That is going to be it for
Eli,
today. Yeah, what's up?
can I just mention one more thing? I want to
Oh, of
mention one
course.
more thing about
Go quick.
Vegas and the Stanley Cup final. I don't
Yeah.
know if you saw, but John Tortorella in his press conference, his mic fell. It was the funniest thing ever. But the reason why I brought that up is because right after he answered a question saying that he was pissed about Carolina's game-winning goal and how it felt like it wasn't a deserved goal. What is he talking about? Like, I don't like you can be on your team about Carolina shouldn't have scored, your team should have been better. To me, Vegas needs to be better on the power play, and you need to get better play from Carter Hart to win. But
Yeah.
to say that the other team didn't deserve that game-winning goal, those are playoff goals. That is how goals are scored, and
Did
that
he
is
see
how
the goal that they scored in overtime? Like, what
exactly,
are we
like
talking about here?
that is how Stanley Cups are won. It's by these tough, gritty goals that are bounced off weird places. And you're gonna say Carolina doesn't deserve it? I just found that crazy. Like
Yeah.
I don't, he's a great coach. I really do like Tortorella. He's so entertaining when he was with the Canucks. Obviously, he's won the Stanley Cup before, could win it again. He's won a few Jack Adams, but sometimes he can be just so not smart when it comes to the media. Like, it's nothing that Brendan Moore
Oh,
would
not
do. Like, he would never mention something like that. To say
you know
the
what it
other
reminds
team,
me of, to a lesser extent? Your boy in Cleveland when he said, "Analytically, we've won 2 of the
Kenny
first 3 games
Atkinson, yeah.
against the Knicks."
It was just
It
like
reminds me of
now
that.
now people I see it on TikTok all the time. It's like Cavs are playing OKC and the game
Yeah,
4 to
Game 7, the
analytically.
analytics finals.
Yeah,
So
it's just
it's
you
so
can't give
good.
people anything. And
Can't
but
say that, even if you
Tortorella
believe it.
always has.
I know. I hear you, but, like, you can't I agree with you. You can't s even if you believe it, you can't say that out loud, dude. It's just especially after the mic drops, like, it's just a straight up
He
blooper
looked
reel.
so pissed too. Like he was
He's always
waiting for the
so on
guy
edge,
to
man.
put the mic on the stand for him. Like
Yeah,
it was funny.
that guy's always on 10, eh? It's never 9 or 8. He is
No.
just on 10 or 11 all the time, which is why he's such a great spark plug and a big reason why Vegas are in these finals. God love him. But that's the thing about Tortorella, though, is with this kind of stuff behind the scenes, from what I've heard and talked to people about, he actually is a really good dude. Whereas back to the Babcock situation, I just don't think he
He's
is.
not. Yeah.
But, anyways, thank you all so much for watching. As always, I want to know, what do you guys think is going to happen the rest of the Stanley Cup final? How excited are you about Vancouver hosting the FIFA World Cup? The Lions season starting on Saturday. A whole lot of stuff is going down that we are super excited about. So drop your thoughts down there. We are small enough as to where we can respond to all comments. So drop something. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed what you heard. Please subscribe if you really enjoyed it. The Spit Sports Show, just at over 445 subscribers. Big things happening on this channel. And as always, we'll see you all in the next one. Peace out. Love you guys.